Let me know when we are live.
We are live.
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson, and welcome to a special meeting of the Board of Council Rock School Directors. And tomorrow, welcome to July. First half of the year is already complete. I'll wish everybody a happy and healthy and hopefully enjoyable July 4th holiday this coming weekend, and call the meeting to order. Mr. Tate was going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm here.
Oh, he's here, Mr. Tate. Good. I didn't want you to miss your moment. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Block. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Madam Secretary, may I have a roll call, please?
Ed Tate,
Here.
Andy Block,
I'm here.
Mike Thorwart,
Here.
Denise Brooks,
Here.
Mark Bialik is not here.
On vacation.
Joe Hidalgo,
Here.
Kristen Marcel.
Here.
Marion McKee,
Here.
Ed Solomon.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Aronson, Solicitor's Report.
I have that a meeting of the executive session occurred on June 25th, 2020 to discuss a personnel matter. That is all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Frazier, I assume there's no superintendent's report on here because there is none tonight before public comment?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. With that, why don't we go to public comment?
There are two public comments for this evening, Mr. Block. I'll start with the first one. Comes from Elizabeth Lewis, who is a South parent from Holland. She says, after reading through the proposed health and safety plan for fall sports and marching band, I have a couple of questions. One, will there be a CR district nurse on duty for every practice and/or performance day? Will that person be responsible for taking temperature and keeping logs for students as they arrive? In the recent years, we have had nurse available to our band students on only band camp and competition days, not on football Fridays nor any of the other practices. It's been told that they are in the building if we need them, but many times it is near impossible to find them while they are doing other parts of the extremely demanding job. Number two, how do we ensure that no contact thermometer is available in the event that a district nurse is not on the schedule, assuming that the district will be supplying these, as they likely will need all coaches to have them? Number three, where the proposal states that PPE should be provided by participants, what level of PPE is expected to be provided by students? Masks are specifically stated, but what about gloves and the like? Number four, will the district be providing some amount of appropriate hand sanitizer? Number five, can we please get assurance and follow through that restrooms, when building is being used, are fully stocked of hand soap, paper towels, etc.? It has been years since the A-wing bathrooms have been fully stocked for use during after-school weekend use. With close to 100 student members, this becomes a sanitation issue on a good day, let alone during COVID-19. Thank you so much for all the hard work that continues to be done to help our kids stay safe and return to what they love, whether it be football, band, cheer, or any other activity. Their emotional as well as their physical health will surely benefit. Public comment number two comes from David Chan from Holland, Pennsylvania. The board should vote to allow sports to continue. Almost every out-of-school league has already opened up and is doing practice and games. The athletes from Council Rock are already playing together and iterating. If you block sports, you're not stopping anything. You're just upsetting people in your community. Thank you. And that ends public comment.
Thanks, Mr. Frederickson. And just before Ms. McKee, I asked you to read the motion for our item for approval tonight. I just want to take an opportunity to thank Dr. Frazier and his extended team. I think less than 2 weeks ago, you got the reopening guidelines and found out the tremendous amount of work that you're required to deliver before school opening, and more importantly, the incredible amount of work that has to go in to getting a plan approved before you even get to that. So I just want to acknowledge all of the effort, the work that's gone into it. More importantly, what's going to happen over the course of the next month to get to an approved plan, and the coming months to get us into school. So to the entire gang, on behalf of the public, it's not lost on us. Thank you. And with that, I'd ask Ms. McKee to please read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Block. I move to approve the athletics/marching band health and safety plan as contained in the attachment to this agenda.
I'll second it.
Mr. Solomon with the second. Dr. Frazier, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Mr. Block, and thanks for those comments. And I too am going to echo those comments with some of the people that we have with us this evening as panelists, starting with, we have a Council Rock School District pandemic team. The Department of Education says that we either need to have a pandemic coordinator or a pandemic team, and our team consists of Dr. Chuck Lambert, our Director of Special Services, who will be presenting here this evening. And as you see on the screen here, we have Ms. Michelle Adamas, our nursing coordinator for the district, and she's also with us as a panelist this evening. Dr. Casey Black, our supervisor of student services, our athletic directors, Mr. Findley and Mr. Lair, and then our athletic trainers, excuse me, Mike Carand and Scott Lisher. So yes, a tremendous amount of work has gone into this plan as well as our overall reopening plan. Just to be very clear on this, the plan that we're going to take a look at this evening and request board approval for is only in effect until August 10th. August 10th is the date that PIAA, from a sports standpoint, technically takes over. It's heat acclimation for football, practice for football, and other fall sports starts a week later on August 17th. Band has some different schedules between the two high schools. And so this plan from PDE is really an athletics plan, and recognizing that we need to have provisions in place for marching band as well, we made sure to include them in this plan. But again, it does only extend through August 10th. We will be revising this plan based upon the latest information and the latest guidance leading up to August 10th. In fact, we do have a board meeting scheduled for the Thursday prior, August 6th, and that's the date that we'll be targeting for a revised version of this plan to be board approved. And I know that everyone is chomping at the bit for activities to begin. We've all been cooped up, and we're anxious for that to happen for our students, for our coaches, for our musical conductors, but we do want to make sure it happens in the safest way possible. So again, my compliments to this team, my thanks to this team, and with that, Dr. Lambert, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, everyone. And I left here the team members. I just wanted to give a special thanks out to Mike Horan, who did a lot of the work of putting actual words on pieces of paper to get the plan to where it was. So special thanks to Mike, but everybody for putting in the time and effort to review this. I don't want to reiterate what Dr. Fraser just talked about, but I will to a certain extent, that this did come to us. We were required to have a plan approved before we could do anything. It was recognized that that would probably, athletes and coaches would want to start working as they typically do around July 6th. So we wanted to get something approved as quickly as possible so that we could accommodate that. And as Dr. Fraser said, we've decided to make our plan to address what we know is going to happen, as is typically what happens prior to August 10th, which is the conditioning part of the season. If you read the full plan, you might have questions as to why we're talking about transportation in the plan or events in the plan when we don't have them. We wanted to have the basic structure and framework there for us that we would use throughout the school year. So that speaks to what Dr. Fraser was talking about, is we will make revisions as we need to as we get into later parts of the season. We are also expecting that we will get guidance from some of the governing bodies for sports and some of the medical associations and departments, and we just don't know when we're going to get them. So we didn't want to be constantly changing. So we have this in place for this period of time. And hopefully, as Dr. Fraser said, that date in early August, we can have something a little bit more concrete for the rest of at least the fall part of the season. Currently, we are permitting sessions only for fall sports and marching band. We did provide the directors of marching band with a draft of the plan early on, asked them to review it to make sure that it would meet their needs. If not, we would have certainly looked at looking at a different document, but they were confident that it served their purposes in providing adequate guidance for how they will operate. We're asking that all other sports will wait for further direction before they begin any type of activities. And just want to be clear that this is only talking about fall sports and marching band. Once we get back into schools in September, the other extracurricular extracurricular activities and clubs can begin to hold meetings and what have you, and they would be following the general guidelines of what we had on our plan for opening school, not necessarily guided by these guidelines. We are also saying that there will be no interscholastic activities or travel until we receive further guidance, and that guidance is then sent out to our teams. We are, the participation will happen up until August 10th as typical. What we would do is conditioning of our athletes, our athletic trainers are very cognizant of recognizing that many of our students probably have not been participating in workouts like they typically would with gyms being closed and what have you. So they want to gradually get kids back into working hard so as not to have any injuries. So the conditioning will be very gradual in building up. We are not allowing any indoor sessions at this time until and further guidance will be provided when we are going to do so. We're asking that only coaches and staff be present at sessions currently. All of our coaches and athletes will undergo a COVID-19 screening prior to each session. This screening will be similar to what will happen when kids return to school in the fall. Anyone who is sick, thinks they may be sick, or has been exposed must stay home. We will follow social distancing guidelines. Students will work in pods of 5 to 6 players with limited intermixing of those pods to try to minimize social interaction. Oops, sorry. And we will certainly be working to promote regular healthy hygiene. Masks are encouraged when students are not actively participating and that's tolerated. And adults will wear masks when social distancing is difficult or when interacting with the students' athletes. Masks are currently the only equipment that we are requiring of our staff and students. Let me go back. We're requiring of staff and encouraging with students for when they're not participating. We are not for this period of time. We do not want any equipment use. We are asking the participating coaches bring their own water bottles, and there will be no concession stands until further notice. As part of the plan, all of our coaches will complete training on COVID-19, the screening process, and the expectations of the plan, and all athletes will complete a similar training program. We are asking that athletes and families will sign the Council Rock School District Athletics Participation Waiver for communicable diseases, included COVID-19, prior to participating. We will get that out to families as soon as this is approved and as soon as possible so that they can review that. All athletes are asked to communicate any health and fitness related concerns they have to their coaches and trainers immediately. And athletes should be prepared when they arrive at sessions to begin the session. We want to try to minimize kids socializing and hanging out in small groups without social distancing prior to the practice beginning. We have guidelines for the different phases. Guidelines for the red is obviously no team activities would occur if we were asked to return to the red level. If we were to return to the yellow level, team activities could continue and they would focus on conditioning. No more than 25 individuals total present, and no contact is allowed, and clearly no sharing of clothing, towels, or any other equipment. In the green stage where we are currently, team activities can include conditioning, drills. The ball work is permitted, but we would like to involve any ball work that is using the hands. We prefer, anything with the feet and sticks would be fine. Any ball work that does occur with the hands, we want to avoid multiple athlete touches without cleaning in between. There will be no competitions until we get further guidance from those organizations and directed by this Council Rock administration. In the green phase, there can be no gatherings of more than 250 individuals. That's a general rule across the Commonwealth. When we do permit indoor facility use, cleaning protocols will be followed. There will be no sharing of clothing, towels, or equipment. Equipment that is used once we get to that point will be cleaned after individual use. And when we get to that point again, we will come out with further guidelines on transportation as we will for when students return to school. I do want to say all of those guidelines and everything that I'm talking about here, the committee put that together from reviewing plans from many school districts and recommendations from many organizations that govern sports and public health. Any potential positive COVID-19 cases, the athlete or staff will report to the school nurse, or if it's in the summertime, to the coach, who will notify the athletic director, who will notify the nurse. If they have any symptoms, if they've had a positive test or they've had exposure to an individual with COVID-19, they will not participate when that is reported. If the symptoms develop during a session, the individual will be isolated, and we will ask if someone pick the individual up. We do not want to put a symptomatic individual in the position of driving themselves, so we will require someone to come pick them up. And in those cases, they will need a physician contact and clearance to return. And that is that. Any questions? I'm happy to, or any of the committee members will be happy to entertain them.
All right, Ms. Brooks has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the use of the word exposure. So is that meant to mean, oh, sorry. Oh, my dog has a question too. I'm sorry. Is that meant to mean known exposure to someone who tests positive? The reason that I'm asking, I'm wondering if it's like a situation, because I was just watching the news about certain specific areas of the country that have seen tremendous increases in positive cases. If someone were to have vacationed at a place that had a high exposure situation, would that qualify as an exposure to keep a student home?
Mike, do you mind if I put you on the spot to answer that question?
Sure, no problem. I think that I just took a course through Johns Hopkins, and they are saying that close contact with someone who's positive has to be greater than 15 minutes and less than 6 feet apart. So I think just by the nature of a family traveling to a part of the country where there's an uptick, we would have a hard time enforcing them not participating unless they had had direct contact with someone who was known to have it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Please raise your hand. Mr. Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Dr. Lambert, I heard you say that these guidelines were formulated looking at recommendations from a wide variety of organizations. And I think I heard Dr. Fraser say at the outset that as of August 10, what we do will be in large part determined by PIAA. Is that the case? Right now we're operating on the recommendations of a lot of sort of an amalgam of recommendations, but as of August 10, sort of PIAA is in the driver's seat?
So I would ask Scott or Rob to jump in here. I do believe that we are anticipating that we will get further guidelines from PIAA. I would assume also from Suburban One. So we don't know what they will be. We're expecting that we will get something, and then we will revise based on that information.
Yeah, if you want me to jump in. They have by August 10th, they have to tell us something because we're going to get quickly into the competition season. So, I mean, they're going to have officials ready. They're going to have teams ready if they decide to either implement the season as is or push it back. They're going to have to notify each of the surrounding districts so that they can start to have plans. And then obviously each part of the state may be in a different area depending upon what's going on at that current moment. So PIAA will be more in the driver's seat because they are the governing body for actual competitions.
Yeah, and I just like to good job, Rob. I just like to add on that what we're doing now and what we're trying to put in place now, and I again like to thank really Mike and Chuck really taking the bull by the horns with this, and they've done a tremendous job. But these are voluntary workouts. These are not. This is not something that you have to do. This is just something that most coaches do in order to run a successful program and to get your kids in some sort of shape when August 10th or 17th rolls around. So to me, I think it's a real positive thing to get the kids back on campus, develop some camaraderie, also get themselves in shape. But obviously, our coaches are going to have to, are in a difficult position where they're really going to have to monitor what our kids are doing. So typically, the way PIAA, in all my years of working with PIAA, they usually put a lot of the responsibility either back on the district, District 1, or the local school district. So these plans that are being developed by Central Bucks and Palisades and Upper Moreland, everybody in the Suburban 1 has one of these plans, okay? And they're all just tweaked a little bit. For example, some school districts are taking temperatures of the kids every time they come on campus. Whether the coach is doing it, whether they have a nurse come, whatever, but everybody has a, you know, their own little plan and how they're doing it. So, you know, obviously I think we have a good plan moving forward here, but there are a couple things that we need to work out, you know, amongst ourselves in the committee, because North campus is a little bit more condensed than South. We have sprawling fields where we can certainly put our kids all over the campus, where Rob's, you know, Council Rock North is a little bit more, is a little tighter together. So we're gonna have to develop a schedule. And there's a lot of things that need to take place before even July 6th with Zoom meetings with our coaches and making sure they do all their tutorials and their staffs are prepared. And, you know, and there's an accountability piece on the part of the parents as well. You know, we're gonna be relying on them and their kids to be honest about their symptoms and make sure that they don't put anybody else in harm's way. So I know I sort of went off on a tangent there, but basically everyone is doing what we're trying to do, or everyone is trying to do the same thing until we get that final word from PIAA. And we hope that we get some sort of direction, because it's been crickets from Harrisburg, absolute crickets. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks. That's helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Mr. Hidalgo has his hand up.
Sure. I just wanted to comment that, you know, the information is coming at us at lightning speed and the deadlines are swift. And the team's done a great job putting together this plan, and specifically on a Tuesday, maybe less than 10 days since we were required to do this, so we can start July 6th. I take comfort in the fact that we're going to use this as a time to work out the kinks and actually see what other school districts are doing, like was mentioned, and just collaborate together here to strengthen the plan. So, and the fact that it's voluntary, I'm pretty comfortable with what they've put together here. So I'm looking forward to taking these next 3 or 4 weeks and sharpening this plan up, and it gives us a starting point. But the best part is that the kids are actually being able to do this. I think that's a great step in the right direction, and hopefully we can continue with that. So just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to getting back to school.
Thanks, Mr. Hidalgo. Are there any other questions or comments for the board? As I'm waiting for you to put your hands out, I'll note we have a nice attendance today, 34 folks out there, including State Representative Wendy Thomas coming back to visit us for a school board meeting. Good to see you, Wendy. Anybody else from the board have any comments or questions for the group? Going once? Going twice? Chuck, I don't have any more, so it looks like a great presentation. Dr. Frazier, before I call for a vote, any other comments?
No, really just to reiterate what was just said there. These are voluntary off-season. I wouldn't even call this preseason. These are off-season workouts, but we know many of our kids and many of our coaches are chomping at the bit, and we're chomping at the bit for them. So we fully recommend the approval of this plan here this evening.
Thanks, Dr. Frazier. With that, Madam Secretary, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Ed Tate,
Yes.
Michael Rort,
Yes.
Denise Brooks. Denise Brooks,
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Marianne McKee,
Yes.
Joe Hidalgo,
Yes.
Kristen Marcel,
Yes.
Ed Solomon,
Yes.
Andy Block.
And a yes, that motion passes unanimously 8-0. Congratulations, team. We have a plan to work with. Good luck with what comes from here. That being said, is there any old business from the board? Is there any new business from the board? I note there is one hand up in the attendees in the participants group. And I would tell, it looks like Mr. Katozzi, we cannot take public comment or answer questions in the participants group. So I would encourage you to send an email to reopening@crsd.org with your question, and somebody will get back to you. So sorry about that. We just don't have the functionality given some of the challenges that we had early with Zoom. Any other board comment? All right, everybody, meeting adjourned. Happy July 4th.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.